This presentation is going to look at useful functionality available within ProContract version 2.1. Initially, we're going to look at the user management area within ProContract, located on the ProContract homepage. This gives administrators the ability to create new users within the system, modify user access rights, or update or add new departments to the system as well. If I click to view modify a user, this gives me all the various different users within my organization. And if I select Peter Jones, you'll see here that his department is procurement. I have the option here to change that department if I wish. And I can also change the access rights available to Peter by selecting the relevant checkbox option over here. Once I've updated the access rights for a user, I click update user, and it tells me that the system has now updated the access rights. A notification email will also go to Peter advising of the changes in his access rights. Equally, if I wanted to, I can also reset user passwords from this area, and I can deactivate a user. Perhaps a member of staff's left the organisation or something of that nature. I click to confirm. That suspends their access immediately across the whole system, and you'll see there's a little no entry sign next to Peter's name, and all these details are struck through there. What I could also do, if I wanted to, would be to reactivate Peter as a user within the system further down the line, if that was required. I return to the ProContract homepage now, and you'll also see there's the ability to create a new user. Select the relevant departments that are set up within the system initially, or I've got the option to create a new department. The address details are also in there, or I can add a new address. And then it's just a case of populating the relevant fields, the contact information, and the next screen takes me onto the area where I can select the access rights using the checkbox options again. So that's the functionality available to administrators within the user management area of ProContract. Next, I'm going to have a look within the step library area of the ProContract homepage. This is an area open to administrators as well. And when I access the step library, you'll see all the various different tasks that we may have in any given procurement process stored in this area of the system. What I'm going to do is just add a new step in, and I just want to draw your attention to the various different notice types that we have here. So the contract award notice and the contract notice are your standard OJU forms that you would complete and send to tenders electronic daily through the system. And we also have the VEET notice here, which is now available through ProContract as well. In addition to that, we also have a simplified contract notice, which will be available as part of version 2.2, related to the dynamic purchasing system side of the functionality, which will also be coming in that release. So you're able to set up and process all your OJU forms, all your notices through the system now within ProContract. Other step types that we'll look at throughout this presentation are the award decision step type, which can be used for your debrief with suppliers, notifying successful and unsuccessful suppliers. We'll also have a brief look at the framework step type and the functionality available within the system for your frameworks, further competitions and call-offs, and also our quick quote functionality within the system. So this is a simplified quotation process for your procurement team, where you can set up various different parameters within the step type, but also there is the facility for suppliers to be added in. This can be random selection of suppliers based on postcodes that are submitted through the software to Due North by a customer and uploaded into the software. And I'll give you an example of how that works a little bit later on as well. So all of the step types that I've mentioned here are available within the system and form part of the templates or workflows that sit behind the scenes that have been set up by the system administrators that dictate how procurement officers are going to work through the procurement process that they're undertaking within the software. So this is a finalized template for the overdue open procedure. We have a title, a description of when this template should be used. We can also attach thresholds, the monthly values that dictate which route procurers are going to go down with the procurement, and then a series of steps outlined here as the basis for the procurement process that they're going to carry out. So you can see there's 7 different steps in this simplified example of an overdue open procedure, and that would be the basis that they would pull through for the project they're going to work on. I'm now going to return to the ProContract homepage, and I'm going to open up a project that I've already undertaken within the system, which is a straightforward request for quotation process. I've just clicked on the contract ID, which takes me through to the contract dashboard. We've got 3 distinct areas within the dashboard, which is the main contract details, where you populate all the information, key dates, values, etc. relating to the contract. This one's just a 2-step process with an issue RFQ step and then an award decision step within the software. Over here on the right hand side is all the various contract admin, manage the step, manage the team, the calendar function, and so on. What I've done here, acting as a procurement officer, I've created an RFQ and issued it to my 2 chosen suppliers here. So I've sent it to Centrino and Acme Limited. I've asked for a response by 5 o'clock today, and here's a summary of the general information, any attachments, terms and conditions, and so on that I've issued to the supplier. What I'm going to demonstrate now is how I would amend this document if I wanted to. So I'm just clicking on amend at the bottom of the screen here. That's me if I'm sure I want to amend this document. Yes, I am. So I'll just click amend. And it gives me a carbon copy of the initial document that's went out to my suppliers. What I'm actually going to do is add a couple of other attachments in here under the change attachments section. You can add via the browse functionality by selecting a specific file path and adding the attachments in one at a time if need be. You can also add links to a web page by putting a link name in and then specifying the URL, and that creates a hyperlink in the RFQ for suppliers to click on. However, what I want to demonstrate is uploading multiple attachments. And this can save a little bit of time instead of compressing or zipping files to go as part of your RFQ, your pre-qualification questionnaire, or your tender pack. Initially I select the files, so I'm just on my own drive here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try and add a few different documents in here. I'll add an Excel document, a PDF. I've got a few different types of documentation there. There's my file selected, and all I do now is click on start uploading. And you'll see how the progress bar moves along. I've got some fairly large documents here. Just moving through them pretty quickly, as you can see. And you'll start to see these map across onto the other side of the screen as the process works through. So that was a pretty large document, the first one. All the rest are going on, as you can see, in a matter of seconds. And then just confirm and finish. That takes me back to the view I had previously. All my attachments have been added on. And if I finish from there, that's updated the RFQ. All I now need to do is to populate the amendment information section. So I'm just going to say that I've amended the attachments area, and I've added some additional attachments in here for suppliers. Save that, and then once I've populated all the mandatory information, I can publish this as required. What you'll also notice if I go back into the RFQ document itself is we get a version history, so version 2 there, which we've just populated, is currently displayed. And I can click on version number 1 and see how the original looked as well. And that view is exactly the same for suppliers. So So once I publish the amendment, they receive the notification email, and they'll be able to go in and see the various different versions that are applicable. Now I'm going to move over to the supplier side of the software and log in with my username and password. And then I'll come to the My Opportunities area and carry out a search and see what new documentation I've been sent. Here's the request for quotation that I've just been sent through by the procurement team. Click on the title within the stage detail view, and I'm going to view the RFQ information. So you can see there's the version 2 currently displayed, and version 1, the original, will be issued to the suppliers as well. But let's assume that I've viewed the documentation, I've had a look at all the attachments, and I've decided that it's not for me. What I can do is I can actually opt out as the supplier. I can specify the opt-out reason, which may be that I cannot supply, or there may be another reason that I can specify in the text box provided. But additionally, now I can also opt out of further communications, and that's an option for me as a supplier. So it may be that I just think, yeah, I'm not interested in this opportunity anymore, so I'm just going to say no to all the further communications. So it could well be that actually it's not a fit for me at this moment in time, but if something changes, I'd like to be aware of it, so I can say, actually, I would like to still receive the further communications in case I decide to opt back in a little bit further on in the process. In this scenario though, I'm just going to say I'd like to opt out of any further communications. Okay, so that's the opt-out process within ProContract. We're going to move back onto the buyer side of the software now, and I'm going to take a look at a different process that we've already set up here, which is for the IT hardware tender. So I'm going to take a look at IT hardware tender part A. Click on the contract ID to access the project, and I'm going to select the issue PQQ stage. And if I open this up, you'll see that I've had 2 on-time responses. Now within these responses there could be numerous attachments, and what I'd actually have to do, as it used to be the case, was open this up and download all the various different attachment things that form part of that supplier response. However, now we have the batch download responses facility, so what I can do over here, if I've got numerous suppliers and numerous responses, I can tick the box saying I want to download the responses, all the attachments and so on, and I can also ask the system to send me an email on completion of that process. I click OK, and then we get a little progress bar indicating that it's downloading all the responses. I set that away, I can go off and do some other work as required, and then eventually I'll receive the notification email telling me that my responses are there. It puts them into a nice little folder. I can work through them, I will send them on to non-system users or whatever I need to do with them. So that's quite useful functionality within the system that's currently available now as well. Another option that's available to me within the system is the discussions area, and the fact that I can actually export all the question and answers that have come through any particular stage within a procurement exercise. So if I go to the discussions area, still just on this PQQ step, and you can see here there's been some communication between me and a supplier, and I've also issued some additional information to suppliers as well. We now have an export facility, so if you need to, you can click on the export function here, and what that does is it pulls this through into a CSV file, and all the information that's in there will be downloaded. It might take a moment. And now the pop-up box has disappeared, and we should see any second now the CSV file appear with all the relevant information in. There we are. All I need to do now is to highlight this, tidy up the information. Again, I can save this or send it on to a non-system user as required. Okay, moving away from the discussions area, I'm going to return back to the contract dashboard, and let's assume that I'm now in a position where I want to award the contract to a certain supplier or suppliers. What I'm going to do is select the award decision step. What I'm able to do here is, this could be used to shortlist from, let's say, a pre-qualification stage through to a shortlist from a tender. In this instance, I'm going to say it does constitute contract award, and I'd like to select suppliers from a relevant stage within the process. So I'm going to choose the PQQ in this scenario, and let's just say that the decision reason is best value. I can also add attachments in here if need be. This may actually be a copy of the supporting documentation or relating to the contract. It could be a copy of the contract itself. It could even be an export of the evaluation if it's been done online within the ProContract system, and attach that as part of the debrief process. I select the relevant supplier or suppliers, and then I can send a success notification through to them. And what I'm going to do in here is just put subject, which is contract award, please see attached, and whatever other documentation I may be sending them. Again, there's the facility to use the attachments. Again, you could use the user upload facility for multiple attachments. And once I send that through, you'll see you've got a little green tick here indicating that the notification is being sent to the relevant supplier. And I could also send rejection or unsuccessful notifications to the suppliers that weren't successful as well. Now we're going to go back to my workflow as a procurer and look at a different project that we've got set up here. This is for the supply of IT equipment. And what I'm going to look at is the prepare evaluation functionality within the system. Normally, I'm sure you've seen the evaluation tool itself. Generally speaking, people will have one evaluation template, and that will be containing all the various different sections, subsections, weightings, etc. relevant to that particular evaluation. But in some situations now, you may need to have a base template and then various different lots that suppliers can opt in or out of within the process. So in this simple scenario here, we've got a standard ITT base template which contains all the questions that all suppliers must answer as part of the process here. And then we've got two different lots. One for laptops, which contains two very straightforward questions, one relating to warranty and one relating to pricing. And one for desktops, which is pretty much the same. And again, I've applied my weightings as you normally would within these templates. If I click where it says edit rankings, I'm also able to set up various different rankings. So you can see here what I've said is, when I click on the desktop one, that the standard base template will account for 50% of the weighting, and the lot 2 template for desktops will account for 50% of the weighting. So this is just really an additional set of weightings on top of the evaluation templates that you've set up. And I've done exactly the same with the laptops. Once you've prepared the evaluation templates and added in your additional set of rankings, you're then able to issue these as part of your invitation to tender, your pre-qualification questionnaire, request for quotation, whatever that may be, in the normal way. If I open the step up, you'll see here there's the 3 different valuation templates that I've included as part of the ITT. The base template is mandatory, everyone needs to complete that, and then the 2 lots are optional, so suppliers can opt in or out of the particular lot that we've set up. I'll go back into the ITT now and open up one of the responses that we've had. I can go in and I can see here that this supplier has opted to participate in both particular lots. And then what the system will allow you to do from that point is to go into your scoring stage, the advanced ITT evaluation, and you can set up all the different evaluation templates that you've got here, and you're able to structure the panel evaluation team according to each evaluation template that's available. And what you'll get is separate rankings for the base template and for each of the 2 lots, so you'll clearly see which suppliers came out on top in this particular process. All of the information within the scorecards, again, once that stage is complete, is exportable into Excel, which could link back with the decision step type that we looked at just a little bit earlier. Okay, and then if I go back to my workflows to procure again, what I'm going to show you is how the framework technology works within ProContract. So I've got a stationary framework set up within the system here. Now I'll move on to the framework step itself and open this up. This gives you a feel for how you could set up a framework here. So there's the title, the description that you populate. There's different options available in terms of access rights. All suppliers mandatory means that if anyone uses this framework for a call-off or for a further competition, they'll have to include all the suppliers that I've allocated to the particular lots within the framework. Supplier selection mandatory is really thinking on more of a collaborative scale, where you could share a framework with other organisations as part of a collaborative portal. And then if they want to make a local version of that framework, it dictates whether or not they have to include all the suppliers that I've added to the framework as part of the process as well. You can see that the framework's published, my organisation, the main contact, and the dates that the framework is available. There's 3 different lots within the framework, one for paper, one for pencils, one for pens. And if I click on the paper lot, you can see the supplies that are associated with this particular lot. Framework, external managers, again just relates to the access rights side of the framework, but I could cherry pick certain people within the organisation that have the relevant roles, so I can just give access to certain people, or I can sort of take a blanket approach where anyone that has the relevant role would be able to use this framework for a call-off or a mini competition. I've also got the facility to add attachments, and you can see here within the template section I've also been able to allocate workflows. So I've got one for a call-off and one for a mini competition, which dictates the way that the end user must work through the process when they're using this framework internally. Back on the summary page for the framework, we've got an email status enabled here. Now, as I'm the framework manager, if I leave this enabled, what it will do, it will tell me every time somebody's using the framework for a call-off or a mini competition, it will fire me an email to my inbox telling me that that framework's been used. I'll also have the option to turn that email off if need be. All creators enable again just relates to the access rights, so this means that anybody, as it currently stands, has the relevant role, which is called further competition creator, within their user profile could use this framework internally. And the access control again just relates to any organisations that have given the ability to use this framework across a collaborative portal. I can unpublish the framework if I wanted to make any changes to it. I can add lots, I can delete lots, copy lots, and so on. That's how I set up a framework, and this could be that I'm mapping across an existing framework within the software, or it could be that I'm undertaking a procurement exercise to put together a framework within the system. But eventually we end up at the framework step where we populate all the relevant details required. Now let's assume that I'm an end user and I want to use this framework. There's an area on the ProContract homepage simply called Frameworks. I click where it says View Frameworks to see ones that are available to me. I'm just going to click on the title here, the Stationary Framework. There's a summary of the framework information similar to what we just saw on the previous screen, and all I do now is create a further competition. So I'm just going to call this Call Off. process start date defaults to the next available date, and then I choose the relevant folder within my filing hierarchy within the system. I choose the relevant lot or lots that I intend to call off from the framework. And you'll see on the initial team setup, I'm already allocated as the contract manager and the procurer, and I can add other people into these roles as required in the usual way. I'm already in as the primary contact, and when I click on choose template now, rather than getting all the templates that are available within my system, I get the ones that have been allocated to this particular framework. So select the framework call off, template, my decision date, my completion date, my contract start date, they're all there. I can amend these by clicking in there and selecting an alternative date with the calendar function. There's the steps within the process. Again, I can add or remove selected steps because of the access rights I have in the system. And then when I'm happy with that, I just click finish to finalize the creation of the call off. And now if I go back to my own contracts, my workflow as a procurer, you'll see there's the call off I've just created. You'll also see it's flagged here with a little tick in the FC further competition column, and then my framework contracts highlighted with a tick in the FWC column here. To access the call off, I just click on the contract ID. Dashboard layout and everything's pretty much the same. If I open up the main contract detail, you'll see the look and feel of this is again what you would expect. Populate the key details and information. You'll see categories have already been set. Key dates I still need to populate in here. I can also add description and keywords if I wanted to. That'll now return me to the contract dashboard where I can start working on the various steps within the process. If I open up the framework call off step, you'll see that initially it just looks like any other step that you have when you're putting together an RFQ with PQQ or an ITT. But if I click to add or remove suppliers, the suppliers available to me here are dictated by the framework, so I can't just add them in by another route, say the central repository or something like that. I have to choose from the framework's allocated suppliers, and I just use the checkbox option here to add my chosen suppliers in. From that point forward, it's then really a case of populate my submission information, general information, spec breakdown and so on, issuing that to my suppliers and working through the process as stipulated. What I'm now going to do is go back to my individual workflow as a procurer and back into the stationary framework project itself. What I've done here is I've added in a monitor contract step. So if I open this up, the monitor contract module is where you record anything post award when you're monitoring your suppliers, and you can see here we've got complaint, correspondence, further competitions, price amendments and so on. The further competition tab appears automatically and it updates automatically within the system. So if I click on the further competition tab here and open this up, initially you'll see there's been 9 further competitions, and it tracks who's used this, the date and the estimated value, and that just keeps a running total of the spend used against this framework internally. This is version 2.1 that you can see here, so you can, if I click on where it says change contract monitor detail, I can choose multiple suppliers and monitor my spend and so on post award, and I can click on the various different tabs and update the detail required. As you can see here, various different options, log the details of the correspondence and so on. I can also do vendor appraisals, where I can set up certain KPIs and monitor their supply performance accordingly. So you can see here I'm monitoring 2 different suppliers, and if I choose this particular one, I can view the evaluation template, or the vendor appraisal template I should say, that's being used to score the supplier against key performance indicators, or SLAs internally. All of these scorecards are also exported into Excel into a CSV file. This area has also had a bit of an overhaul for version 2.2, and that I can actually now set up my own custom tabs here and the fields within them, and I can also give access to certain tabs for suppliers. So if I've got certain documentation or things that I need a supplier to update periodically, I can set the access rights up within the system. It can access only the parts that I've given access to, update the documentation, save that, and it makes my life and my working processes a lot easier. There's also a document store element that will be available within version 2.2 where suppliers could go in and access key documents as required, populate them, save them on the system, and so on. While I'm in the monitor step, I'm also just going to show you the calendar view. This is where you could add renewals, sort of reminders for renewals, meeting information, schedule meetings in with suppliers and so on. But the great thing about this from version 2.2 is this will actually map across into your Outlook calendar. So once you add an entry onto the calendar here, it creates a little pop-up box where you can send that information through to your inbox, and it will map across into, let's say, your Outlook calendar, or whatever mail client you're actually using. Just returning to the home page now, and I'm just going to show you now the quick quote process. So I click here to create a quick quote, and let's just say that it's going to be for office furniture. Choose my process start date, and enter my value in here. I choose my categories. There we go. I can obviously drill down through the different levels of the coding as well if required. Once I've chosen my categories, I'll then just choose the relevant folder and click on create quick quote. And it's a much more streamlined process. So initially I'm straight on the dashboard, and there's no need for me to go in and populate any main contract details that I would normally have to within a project. 2 steps here: the quick quote itself and logging of the decision of which supplier or suppliers have been successful. And then I can come in here and populate the information in the required way. I'm not removing suppliers in this particular scenario. I've set this up so I can actually just choose my suppliers in the normal way from the central repository by procurement category and so on. There is also the random selection of suppliers, so if you wanted to set up a scenario where the system will choose you so many local suppliers, so many non-local suppliers, and then still have the facility to add some of your own suppliers in if need be, you can set that up. What we actually do is we take a list of all the postcodes available within your area, upload them into the system, and then you set the parameters for your quick quote steps. So you might say, okay, I want 3 local suppliers, 2 non-local, and for the end user to have the ability to add 2 of their own choosing into the quick quote as well. And that can be useful if your stipulation or your procurement guidelines are to choose 3 suppliers and rotate 2. Effectively the system's selecting them randomly, and it's got a better chance in terms of your engaging your local supplier community by using the quick quote functionality available within ProContract. Another thing that you can do with a quick quote, if you needed to, would be to go to the manage team area, and let's say that actually you now think that this needs to be a main project and you need to allocate more steps in the process and so on. What I can actually do is I can add my user in as a contract manager, and once I apply the change to the team and return to the dashboard, I actually have the option then if I wanted to change the contract type. So I click here to change. Are you sure you want to make this a full contract? And then that gives me all the functionality that you would have with a full mainstream project within ProContract. And that has a link to the reporting tool as well. So rather than it being a quick quote that's flagged out now, it's now a full contract process. and you can see here that the dashboard's updated as well. If I wanted to as well, I can always change this back to a quick quote if I've done that in error. But it's really a much more streamlined process, and the idea being with the quick quote that it's going to be a simplified, possibly a price only exercise where you can apply that out to your chosen suppliers or random suppliers depending on which route you choose to go down, and then log your decision in here and award the business to them. Okay, finally, I'm now just going to move on to one of our live sites, which is the Northwest portal called the Chest, and I'm going to come onto the contract register area here. So the contract register area in this scenario is public facing record of all the various different organisations, local authorities that use the Northwest portal, and all the information that they need to have on there legally in terms of renewals, who the contracts are with, and so on and so forth. You can also have various other parameters associated with that, i.e. public attachment, private attachments, you can have confidential notes, things that are for public viewing, and so on and so forth. What I'm going to do is just click on the contracts link, and it shows me the latest entries here, as you can see. What I can also do is I can filter this by a sub-region for the collaborative portal, and if I choose, let's say, the Merseyside authorities, it then just gives me a summary of all their information. I'm also able, if I wanted to do a search, and that search may be a search by a particular authority that's a part of the Northwest portal. I might want to search on a particular title, a particular category, certain time scale, certain values, various different parameters that we've got here for the advanced search option. All I'm going to do is just type in here stationery, and then I'm just going to search, and what the system will do is it will return all the various different entries relating to stationery on the contract register for the Northwest portal. And you can see a summary of the title, the category, contract start date, end date, and attached files. What I'm able to do is to click on the council's name, and that will take me into a more detailed view of the contract register entry and all the information that's available within it, any attachments and so on. And I can print that off if I wanted to. What I can also do here is I can export this information into an Excel spreadsheet. So let's say I want to have a look at some review. Maybe I'm coming up to do a big stationery order for my local authority, and I want to see if anyone in my region is they've got a project coming to an end, or a project that's going to begin imminently, where we can pool our spend together and possibly get better savings through using this tool. So if I can export the results into a spreadsheet, open this up, in the same way it's pulled it through into a CSV file. All the information is contained within here, and again, I can scrutinise that further, save it, send it on to a non-system user, whatever I need to do. And that's just a quick summary of the contract register. We have a number of collaborative portals that have the contract register element available, and initially what we do with every new customer that onboards, we do an initial upload of all your current contracts with their renewal dates and so on. You could supply that information in the form of a spreadsheet, we upload it, and then from that point forward you can actually update the register manually yourselves. And when I say manually, if I go back on to the buyer side of the software, if I open up just any contract that I've got within this view, within the main contract detail, we've actually got a little link here, promote a contract register. And so you want to promote this to the contract store. I OK that, and what it does is it automatically pre-populates the majority of the information to go on to the register. I can edit the details if required, I can tailor certain fields, certain information, or if I'm happy with it, I can just promote that to the register and then return it on for public consumption. And that's everything within this short presentation. Thank you.